All right, welcome back. So I updated the list post-ban list. We lost skill drain, we lost prosperity, which hurt the deck's consistency a bit because not seeing Pot of Prosperity kind of hurts because sometimes you do get stopped in Soul Resonator and sometimes you don't have access to your crime or to your bone. But I guess it's still fine. It's not like the worst. I did notice a bit of inconsistencies, but nonetheless, it's still fundamentally the same. So there was 5 rounds of Swiss, then top 8 cut. Round 1 was against Dark World. Round 2 against Fiendsmith Chimera. Round 3 was Ritual Beast. Round 4 was Fiendsmith Snake Eye. Round 5 was Fiendsmith. Oh my god, that was a crazy game. Oh my god. And then top 8, I went up against Gimmick Puppet FTK. That was, oh my god, I'm so glad I won a dice roll for that one. And then top 4 against Ritual Beast. It was just so bad. Okay, so typically, you don't really care if they negate Soul. This is where I noticed the pot of prosperity being limited because they go imperm. I'm like, okay, it's fudge. I don't have any I don't have my crime. I don't have bone. And I was like, that sucks. Fair enough. So then I set my traps and paths, but it wasn't enough. They ended up pushing past it because I have Lara. Lara protects the ritual beast from being destroyed by card effect by banishing her. So I was like, oh, it's kind of annoying because I had Nino Ceiling and I had Daruma. So it was a bit odd. And then, so I lose that one because it ended up going to like a grind game, but I lose that one. And then game 2, the same thing happens. So I have way more traps. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you negate Soul, it's perfectly fine because I can protect myself with my traps. But then the only thing I was scared of was like, oh, if he has Storm, Duster, or Evenly, then I'm kind of cooked. But yeah, so I go summon Soul. He goes negate. I'm like, oh my god, are you serious? So I set 4 and pass. It'll be fine. I'm okay. So it was standby main phase 1. Okay, that's fine. It was better phase. I was like, oh my freaking god. And then keep trap trick, and he tries to go get rid of it with an SP, and I chain it and go for Daruma, and it wasn't enough. It was not enough because he ends up having to quick play to fusion or link or something to make something, and you gotta banish it. I was like, oh my god, because I was top deck mode, but nonetheless, it's pretty bad. But top 4 was cool. It was fine. It was fine. But the list functioned quite well. I was experimenting with something. I was main decking a few cards that weren't in here before, and in theory, this seemed cool. I'm not sure if I'll play them again, but like for that event was pretty cool. So, okay, let's just straight up game through it. So you have Triple Soul, the heart and soul of the deck. Well, not the heart, it's the soul. Triple Soul, you have your Vision Resonator, you have your Crimson Resonator, and of course you have your Synchron Resonator. When I first played the deck, I had the ratios all wrong. I would play 3 of this, and I would play like 2 of this. Initially, it seemed fine, but the longer you play, generally for this style of deck, you don't really go for this route. If you watch the previous builds of this variant, you know that you don't really do that turn 1, right? You just save it for the following turn and capitalize. You generally just go Scarred, set 4 pass, right? That's like what you want to be doing. But for the most part, yeah, this is like slot. You hate when this gets negated. But it's going to happen sometimes. But because that's the case, you have to max out on your non-tuners, right? The crime or the bone. So you max out on your bone, triple bone, and then triple crime. Because generally, if you guys have been seeing some other variants, they don't really max the crime out, right? They don't really max him out. Because they feel like, oh, so much access to Soul Resonator that this is basically this, or this equates to this, right? But I just want to be prepared or anticipate an interaction on stopping him, right? So that's fine. Okay, so summon, then negate it. Fine, I open this. And it used to be I opened prosperity, but since that one now, you can't really rely on that. It's still in here, but like generally that's what you would do. You'd have like 9 cards that compare with Soul that can possibly get you to an extender or to a trap. But for the most part, it's just because I just don't like when it gets negated and then me not have something and I have to pass on my traps. It's fine. But I want to be able to establish your Red Dragon Archfiend as fast as possible and as soon as possible. And another good thing as well is that sometimes, for whatever reason, you need a way to make this a 1 card, right? Because sometimes you don't get access to him, and you get access to him the first time, but for whatever reason, I'm not sure, something happens where you don't get to use its effective number trap, whether they spot removal it or they destroy it before you can even get to a synchro play. The fact that you can top deck this and then you have other copies to search is insane. That happens a lot, actually. I noticed that a lot, where I'm glad I have multiple copies because of that fact, that sometimes I wasn't able to send the trap, and I'm like, okay, summon, And then try to do it again. Seems pretty good. And this, okay, so originally this was meant to be a 50 card deck, but because like I was at 48 and I was like, okay, I need to put 2 more cards. But I didn't know what other 2 cards to put in. I was going to play Bestials, but then I was like, oh, I'll just put more traps. So my OCD was not going to let me. So I ended up cutting this because originally I was main decking this. Because I'm actually fond of this in this deck, not in any other deck. You would not play this over anything else in any other deck, right? Because like, why would you, right? But for the fact that you can search it with this is why it's different in here. The dynamic it presents is quite nice when you have your traps. And it's applicable in almost every given matchup. Snake Eye, Fiendsmith, Voiceless. It's pretty good, actually. It's not bad. But I took it out before the event, but I forgot to take it out of my deck box. I was like, oh, it's fine. I was rushing towards the end. I was packing myself up, and then I decided to take it out. But I guess I must have stacked it on top of. I was under the deck, and I just left it as it is. And I was playing 51. I was like, oh my god! But it's actually pretty good. It actually saved me. It's not bad. Overloop's just a necessary brick to help you extend when you have your established red zone. And these are the different cards I was trying out. Main deck Nibiru and main deck Fenrir. These are a bit contradictory because like if you activate this, you can summon this. But it's the fact that you want to open up either or, right? Going second. Going first, it just reinforces your board because you're very simplistic in a way where you just go Scarred. So like the fact that you can go summon this, summon Soul to play around Droll, right? Search first. And if you don't have Droll, you search third copy. Well, you search Bone. And then the second copy can be discarded off Bone's effect. Because sometimes you don't want to discard a trap. You want to keep those. So that's pretty cool. And you'll see the extra deck. Because sometimes when they negate Soul, you can make a 10. Which is pretty cool. Not Baron. Baron's banned. But you make Changing, right? And most of the time you have access to Crimson Gaia. And then Gaia can search you your Phoenix Golem. So it's pretty cool that you have like a spot removal, like a Trish type of effect. Not Trish effect, but like you banish something and then trigger Changing, and then it's pretty cool. It's not bad. Going second, I noticed that whenever you try to play into a board, the way you bait an SP or a spot removal is by trying to synchronize, right? You'll try to go like Soul, Bone, Special, and then you bait the SP to come out so they can remove that to ensure that your back row stays untouched and use that to break your board. That's kind of what you want, and this does something that's similar, where it just applies pressure. Summon, whether the princess it, that means my bone's not going to be destroyed, right? And if you have multiple copies, sometimes it kind of benefits you in the long run, because sometimes you do open multiple, and then you're like, oh, it's fine. Destroy one with the princess, it's fine. Summon the other one, and then try to use the effect, and then it's pretty cool. But that's why I liked it, because it just applies so much pressure, and because we don't do the Crimson Resonator line often, we don't really mind this because all we're doing is Scarred first turn with this, right? So going second into a board, summon, effect, search, attack before anything, effect, spot removal, bait something, you know. So that's why I really liked it. And then Nibiru, because Palooza is not in a format anymore, and because of how low sequence your deck is, you need to find a way to simplify it, right? So this is one of those cards that help you to do that. Stop an overwhelmment, try to establish the board, and then you're fine. And then you can send it off of Bone, which is quite nice. And it gives them a body for you to go for the OTK. Because if you can get to an RDA sequence, then that's most likely a game. Because you can destroy the token attack position, trigger your Gaia, summon back your Scarred, and then attack for game. It's pretty cool. But yeah, it's mainly because Apple's gone. That's why. I think I would prefer to keep this over this if I had to choose moving forward. But so far, they're pretty good. I don't know. But I'm not sure. I might just cut these and just bring you down to 40, 45. I don't know. And then you have your spells. You have your Prosperity, of course. You have your Foolish, your Crimson Gaia, amazing card. And then, of course, you have your Resonator cards. This was a big hit for the deck because, as I mentioned before, this was that you wouldn't mind this getting negated, your Soul, because you would have 9 cards to pair with it with 3 Crime, 3 Bone, and 3 Prosperity. But then the second one is like, oh, it's so unfortunate. But I guess it's not too bad. Foolish, you need Foolish because you need to get access to Bone because you play Floodgates. And sometimes you get locked under your Floodgates. So you want to be able to get rid of those. And then Gaia is just an amazing card. It allows for this type of style of gameplay, right? Because you're always going to get a resource follow-up, which is quite nice. And then 1 card combo because of crime. It's really good. And this is where you have your traps. So this is the last minute addition that I was gonna put in. I was at 48. These are the cards I wanted to fit in to make it 50 because my OCD just wouldn't let me play 48. I was like, let's just play 50. and the reason why I cut the Meister, but I forgot to take it out. But this is good against Fiendsmith. It's applicable at versus Tenpai, which is quite nice. It's not bad. Daruma, of course, one of the best traps of the deck. And then more mass removal. You have Torrential. And then, of course, you have Needle Sling. This is a very old card. It's quite nice, but you just want mass removal because these function really well with your Crimson Gaia because of the destruction. So what happens is, whether you establish your RDA or not, you're scarred, right? Because it's just one synchro that floats, right, constantly. Because if a monster is destroyed, you just reborn it, which is quite nice. But let's say they get rid of your scarred or your RDA for some reason, I don't know, and then you top deck into these, that reestablishes your board because that means this will revive your RDA, which then this means you can search for your RDA traps. So at the very least, you simplify the game state, you've nuked the board, revive your RDA. Next turn, you search for your Golem, search for your red zone, and then you establish your game plan there, right? Because you can pop or banish something and then set Phoenix Chain, which is quite nice. I like the synergy between this and the Gaia Destruction effect. It's so good. And you need these type of cards because your deck is so low sequence. Pushing into a board is not is not resilient enough. So you have to simplify it. But you do with traps because hand traps are a bit different in the way they can simplify the game state. Sometimes they are a bit underwhelming because there's no way that this deck is resilient enough to push into a board if your Valor or Ash don't stop the establishment, right? You just can't. It's low sequence. There's nothing you can do. The restriction of Dark Dragon synchros is a bit too much, so you can't pivot. So that's why I went with these cards because it allows you to break a board going second. If you draw any of these cards going second, of course this one's a bit odd because you need to pair this with either of these. But for the most part, if you draw these going second, you can ensure that you survive, right? Because they've already depleted their resources, they have their board, and that's all they're going to make. Anything else would just be tech choices where they'll be into an access code or an SP line that they haven't used yet, right? But for the most part, they'll have their board and it's already there for you to deal with. And that's where these come into play. Because if you top deck a Valor, you can't use that. And even if you could use that, if you pass, they've already done whatever it is they need to do. Whereas these cards, you can draw for your 6th card, set, pass, go. Right? And then at the right time, and if you anticipate correctly, they should fulfill their purpose, which is really nice. And because I want to have a bit more versatility, and because it's such a high card kind of deck, I need to be able to have access to these guys as consistent as possible. So that's why I play Trap Drake. So basically, this is another copy. This is a 4th copy of each card, basically. So you should be able to crack any board with this, right? Which is pretty cool. And then you have your Floodgates, you have your Goes and Match, you have your Rivalry, you have your Skill Drain. This went to 1, unfortunately, but I guess it's fair. It's fair, I guess. Yeah. But it's still necessary, still pretty good. And then, of course, you have your one of Red Dragon Archfiend traps. You have Red Zone, Phoenix Golem, Phoenix Chain, and Red Rain. This card's insane. Oh my god, this is so impressive. I have thought about it, of using this with this just to get access to it, assuming I don't have access to Crime. But nah, it's just too bricky. But for the most part, it's cool. Most people, you don't see people playing these, right? But I just like the fact that sometimes you don't get access to your synchro. You just don't. So the fact that Gaia can search Golem to pair with your other traps is quite nice. It makes it a bit odd for them to interact with you. Because sometimes banishing, let's say, Flamebird can hinder their line of an OTK. So I really like this. Is really, really cool. And then Phoenix Chain is just because of the way the deck is structured, you enter the grind game quite often. So being able to just set this and generate resources, like you'll get Golem, you'll set this, you'll float to RDA, you have Gaia, follow up, and then you have this on your turn because you set it the previous turn. It was quite nice. But there are times where you can purposely banish your own RDA, assuming you have access to Red Zone, right? Because otherwise it'd be kind of difficult. But let's say you don't have any other interaction, right? The fact that you can go Golem, banish your own RDA, set this for their turn, right? And then have an effect negation, and they can attack, which is quite nice. It's a very niche play, but it's something that I have done in the past, which is quite nice. But yeah, that's 51 cards. I might trim it down because I felt like it was okay. It wasn't too bad. It's fine. And then you have your side deck. You have your Druid Worm, Magnemite, Druid Worm, Resonator. Unfortunately, because in time, you already have a bunch of time cards. You have Crime, you have Scarlet. Adding this to it just makes it a bit better, I guess. Storm, Harpies, Dark Ruler. This is very generic, right? Very generic. Judgment, we're going to go first, and then evenly matched. It's a very generic side deck. You can change it however you want. I just felt like this just works the best for me. It's been doing quite well. Just very blanket. And then, of course, you have your extra deck. This is where it's different because we're playing Fenrir, so just be mindful of that. Supernova is still pretty good. This with traps is insane. Spatter, Bane, Changing because you play Fenrir, right? So it's pretty cool the fact that you can go summon. You'll summon your Fenrir, right? Summon Soul to negate Soul. Okay. You go into a 10, and then Gaia will search you your Golem, right? You search your Golem. And then now you have Changing and this, and it's a pretty cool spot removal interaction during their turn, which is quite nice. And of course, Abyss. And then you have Shen Shen. Shen Shen is for when you open up Fenrir and Vision, right? So like you can go like summon effects, search another one, summon this, go into Shen Shen, assuming it's the matchup that's good against, right? You just and then search Gaia. Gaia searches your Golem. And then it's pretty good against Fiendsmith, Bell, Snake Eye. It makes it really weird for Tenpai as well, because everything is banished from the field, of course. So it's not the worst, but it's just for those times where I need to get to Gaia and I need to establish something for the following turn. And that's why it's there, specifically for that. It's not best. It's a pretty cool little flood, I guess. It's not like the best flood, but it's enough, sufficient. Then you need another 9, and I went with Croc because Croc allows you to trigger your Gaia, right? Assuming you have a pre-established RDA in the graveyard. And it lets you draw a card, so it's not the worst. But for the most part, it's because it lets you draw a card, it can pop a monster in the field and trigger this, or I can just crash it to trigger this, right? So that's why it's there. And then, of course, you have your RDAs, Scarred, G's, and then, of course, you have your Scarlight. And then you have your Q-Belt, you have your Red Rising. I usually play 3, but because I needed to make room for these guys, I bumped it down. Then you have Samsara. The reason you play Samsara is because you have sometimes this does happen where you open up Crime and you open up this guy, and you're like, okay, well, once again, you need to be able to consistently get to Gaia as fast as possible, and this is a card variation that doesn't really work well if you don't play this, right? And then the Reborn effect actually comes up, where if this is destroyed by battle or card effect by your opponent, you can reborn a monster from either graveyard, which comes up a lot. So the fact that you can go special this, attack, crash, reborn something of theirs, or you can reborn something of yours, which is quite nice. It's like a reborn. But yeah, it's basically the list. I was just trying out the Fenrirs, and it was okay. In theory, for what I needed them to do, they did just that. And I'm not sure if I'll continue to play. I might just bump it down, because there were times where I didn't draw enough traps this time. Like I would always see like Nib and Fenrir, and I was like, oh, these would be traps typically. So I don't know. Maybe it's because like Nibiru is a hit or miss sometimes, and I think I would have preferred to have a trap actually. Backtracking to the event. I don't know, but it was fine. I didn't mind it. It was pretty cool. But just keep in mind that this deck is a bit more conservative. That you're not trying to go and do your Crimson line, right? You're not trying to do that turn 1. You're just trying to do your Scarred, get access to Gaia, set your traps, pass. That's generally how this deck is meant to function. And then basically they can't not play, right? They're gonna have to play, otherwise they're just gonna straight up lose next turn. So when they play, you just blow them out, right? You just mass remove their field, and then you win anyways. And that's generally how you have to. I can't stress this enough. Every single deck profile, you have to understand the matchups. Otherwise, you're going to use these at the wrong time. And sometimes there's going to be times where it feels like, oh, damn, no matter what I do, it's going to be inevitable, and then they're going to get to their point, which is the point, right? You have to be insightful and know that, okay, I just don't use it now. I just don't use it. I wait for next turn, see what I have, see what I get. Maybe I'll draw into a Daruma, maybe I'll draw into a Little Sling, and pair those together for the following turn. And those are like fundamental things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you just have to understand. Otherwise, they're just going to be underwhelming and you're going to get blown out. And it's just, oh, this this variant sucks. You know, but yes, although it's just set for pass, you have to manage your responses optimally. Otherwise, you're gonna be like, oh, that was underwhelming, because it was. He did have the wrong type. But anyways, that's basically the list. Ended up getting top 4. Quite nice. Try it out, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.